Don't panic. It's just pre-season. It's just pre-season. Don't panic. Don't panic too much. We're going to try not to panic. This is today's Arsenal Transfer Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in, for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. And it's I'd rather be sitting here talking after a win. As I said, it's a pre-season game. I'm kind of looking beyond the result. I'm looking at performance. I'm looking at individuals. I'm looking at how things are going to mesh together. And I recognise that the team that we saw yesterday, is not necessarily going to be a team that we see ever. But it's never nice to lose. It's never nice to be beaten. It's never nice to lose in front of your own fans. It's never nice to return to the Emirates in that kind of fashion. It's never nice to lose a penalty shootout after losing a game. I can understand people's frustrations and concerns, and I've got them as well. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about as much of that as we can, and we're going to take some of your questions this morning as well in the chat box. So I look forward to that as well. But yeah, it's I wish I was sitting here and talking to you, about a really positive win and a great performance and all of that usual lovely stuff, but I'm not. And I recognise that leads to disinterest sometimes. So thank you for those of you that are here. Really appreciate you being here. If you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. That also would be greatly appreciated too. So good morning to you all. Thank you so much as always for joining me. Appreciate you being in here in the chat box today. We've got Wobo, we've got Julian and JC, we've got Carrie Ann, Not to Buy, Brian, K9, we've got Peter in the chat box. We've got Ben and JC. I was not in shorts, JC. I was in jeans, as was pointed out by a few listeners that saw me yesterday. Tom in the chat box as well. Freddie, Maniac, Canoe in the chat. Franklin and Sue. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and tuning in. And do drop a like. Do subscribe to the channel, of course, with those notifications turned on so you never, ever miss a show. So let's do it. Let's jump into today's slides and go back over yesterday's game. Arsenal 2, Villarreal 3 on the day. Arsenal lose for a second time in a row in pre-season in what was a concerning performance. I think that's the word I would use. It's concerning. I have worries. I have some issues with how things are going, but I also have explanations for what's going on, and it all comes with the kind of proviso that it is indeed just pre-season. And, this could all change as of that first weekend in the Premier League against Manchester United. It's a different environment. It's a different, it's a different kind of vibe, and it will be a different team, and will be in a different level of preparedness and readiness, of course, as well for that fixture too. So, yes, lots to talk about, and we're going to go through as much as we can. Of course, we're going to part 2 of your questions as well. So if you've got questions on the game, save them for part 2 as well. So we start, I think, with the headline from yesterday. We start with Gyokeres, and we start with his first showing at home from the start in a Arsenal shirt at the Emirates, and obviously, he still only had, I think, 5 or 6 sessions that Arteta pointed out. He's played 20 minutes in Asia, and now we've seen him from the start here. And it's obvious that he's only had that, amount of time, and he's only had a little bit of kind of pre-season sessions. And he's now got, another game on Saturday. He'll have a whole week next week as well before the game against Man United to get adjusted and right with his teammates. But it was an interesting display, actually. There was some things that I got kind of excited by, and there were some things that I was really on my edge of my seat about. And then, of course, there was times where I'm thinking he looks really isolated and he's not getting the service, and we're dominating the ball. We're not playing on the transition quick enough. And there are moments where I wish we would be a little bit more direct, straight to him. And we weren't doing that at all. And there's another player on the pitch who I don't think helped with that. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But when he plays on the last man, as he does, and wants to spin in behind and take the ball and turn away from a player, you need to get the ball into his feet a lot better and a lot quicker, rather than building up down the sides and trying to beat a man and get a ball in the box where he's already got 3 or 4 players around him. That's not where he's going to be the most dangerous. We have to get like a pinpoint pass to Gyokeres in those situations to maximize him as a centre forward. And I was saying to Simon Collins, who was sitting next to me yesterday, that we've played for so long now without a traditional number 9 that it means that we have to learn how to change. We have to change the way that we play. We have to change the way in which we will approach games. I think there are players that will be benefiting from that change if we can successfully execute that change of system. But we need to, because there were some really bright moments for him, don't get me wrong. Like when he's on the ball, the first thing you notice about him when you're actually in the stadium in there and seeing him in person is his size. Without a doubt, his presence is obvious. His presence is so different to anything really that we've had in that role. His muscular build and stature, the way in which he can hold players off with ease, is something that I think we will really benefit from. And he's not slow. He's got real speed about his game. And there's some kind of close touches and good technical ability on the ball too. More than I think that I credited him with. And I'm only seeing him, after less than 90 minutes worth of action so far for Arsenal. So to expect Arsenal to have just clicked into gear regarding having this new player as our kind of focal point, I think would be a little bit naive to do. But it certainly shows that we have a lot to do, a lot of work to do in order to get the best from him. I thought Mikel Merino struggled in this game a little bit. There were some good moments as well from him. There were a couple of crosses and kind of some good passes into the left half space. Of course, I think it was Merino that set up the chance for Gyokeres. That was his best opportunity in the game, which still left him in a tight space to finish. But I think Merino was exposed. I think is probably the right word. I think exposed with how we set up. Nwaneri, Merino, and Norgard was our starting 3. Our best midfielder of the first half was Norgard. I don't think there's much debate about that. He had a really, really good game, Norgard. But Merino looks kind of restricted, and I feel as though that he needs Ødegaard, he needs Zubimendi, previously Partey, when he is in that midfield. He cannot be kind of that creative spark, if you want. He cannot give everything because Norgard isn't Zubimendi. Norgard did a lot of really good things yesterday, but he isn't Zubimendi. He's not that type of player. And Merino then has to take an extra burden of progression when Norgard is clearly playing that role. And I think that was quite exposing of him. But I think it might have just been one of those games, to be honest. I don't think there's necessarily like a tactical analysis to be had of Merino off the back of this. I just think it was one of those games. That's the vibe I got from watching him. It was just one of those games for him that we wanted to see more, but it just wasn't a great midfield performance from him. I thought, I enjoyed him last season in a number of roles. I enjoyed his performances in midfield. I enjoyed his performances at centre forward. He played centre forward in the second half of this game. And as I say, it's for me, it's mainly about fitness pre-season, but you need to look at these system things as well. But what a deal we got for Norgard. My goodness me, 10 million quid. Thank you very much, Brentford. Thank you very much. Great display from him. Really impressed with Norgard's performance yesterday. Was everywhere on the fields, nipping into tackles. Like he was described as slow by people, and he looks anything but slow to me. Norgard. He covers so much ground, and he seems to get into kind of these tackles and these moments where suddenly he's down the right kind of space doing a back heel to Ben White and helping in the attack, and obviously he's a threat from set pieces as he showed yesterday with his goal. But it's Jorginho offers you kind of the passing range of a top midfield kind of deep line playmaker, and he's not that. He doesn't offer you that. But what he is going to offer Arsenal, and I think in key moments in parts of the season, he's going to offer Arsenal a lot more protection of their back four than Jorginho could when he had to deputise in that number 6 role. I feel a lot more confident having Norgard as the 6 as opposed to Jorginho in games where I know we're going to be under the cosh. We need to defend. We need to stop counter-attacks as much as feasibly possible. I feel a lot more confident with him in those moments. The goals we conceded yesterday, Villarreal had 3 chances, scored 3 goals, and that's a concern, obviously. And, that more came from rebounds and some fortune. And then in the second half, they hit us on the counter and players were caught out of position. And Miles Lewis-Skelly and Gabriel definitely, and Kepa as well. We'll talk about that. But it was just one of those games, really, and these games can happen where the team that you play, you limit them to so little chances, but when they come, they take them. And that's exactly what happened. But yeah, I mean, Mike says Norgard reminds me a bit of Coquelin. And I think that's not a bad example, actually, at all. A player who's quiet. He's not necessarily a big high-profile name, but just does it. Someone said to me yesterday, they reminded him of El Neni, and I was like, I think that's a bit harsh. But El Neni was just a part of the squad. With all due respect to El Neni, he was just a player in the group. He was never taking Arsenal forwards. He was never really improving things that we had. He had some good performances. That does Norgard a big disservice, to be honest. I think for me, he is a level above that, and is going to bring Arsenal plenty of really important displays, I think, this forthcoming season, which is going to be important for Arsenal. I thought Saka was kind of, we can talk about Martinelli, and we will, and his struggles, but if we're going to talk about how Martinelli struggled, we have to talk about how Saka struggled too, because I think our wide areas in this game were particularly kind of blunt in the first half. We would get them into dangerous positions, but then it wouldn't really lead to anything major. Saka had Cardona on toast pretty much every single time that he got on the ball. He could beat the man with ease. But when it came to making that final decision, the amount of times that we would cut the ball back to the penalty spot and there's just no one there. Like that, I mean, Winery should be there, but he was often in the build-up, so was out of position by the time the ball got into that role. Or Marino should be running into that position. Gyokeres was really trying to be absolutely everywhere that he could, but he can't be absolutely everywhere. So I thought the wide areas were quite stunted in the attack yesterday. Villarreal, a very good defensive side. They're one of the best defensive teams in Europe, certainly. But I did think that we didn't create the high-value chances that we needed to. We had a lot of opportunities, but again, it's about the value and the quality of those chances that we need to see better from. It's variety. We lack variety. We lack invention. We lack imagination. These are the things that I found myself sitting there being quite puzzled by, how we've got all this talent, but it's not necessarily being put down in a friendly. Martinelli, where do we start? I can't help now. The problem that I've got now with Martinelli is that it's difficult to watch Martinelli beyond the veil of what I expect to see from him every game, because he delivers pretty much what I expect to see from him in every game, which is speed in behind, very little in attack. And there was a replay. There was a moment in the game where he picked up the ball on the halfway line. Gyokeres makes a really good run down the left half space, can be set through as he has and is at Sporting and has done for the last 2 years. But we don't move quick enough. There's no zip. There's no urgency. There's no proactiveness in our approach. And it's like someone picks up the ball and their first thought isn't to pass. Unless you're Ødegaard, their first thought is to run. Saka does it. Winery does it. But more than anybody, Martinelli does it. And there was a replay where Martinelli ends up getting fouled because he's staring at the ground. He's got his eyes locked on the ball and where he's about to run. And all he needs to do is take one look up, see Gyokeres ahead of him running through into a left half space and play that ball through. And he doesn't look up. And I've been saying it for the last 4 years, that the next part of Martinelli's evolution as a player is to take that step up by looking up, by making a decision one touch sooner. And he ends up getting fouled, and Gyokeres, I can't blame him. Like, his hands go up in the air and he's kind of like, his head's down and he's like, I'm making these runs. And Gyokeres was making these runs all game. All game he was making these runs and he wasn't being fouled. And I said to Simon, I was like, it reminds me a bit of Lacazette. Lacazette, was for me a player that, was not on the level of what I think Gyokeres can become for us. But one thing that Lacazette always did was make run after run after run after run and was never found. And I think it's at the moment, I think it's a transition and adaptation issue right now. I think we will start to do that more. We will start to be more direct because we will demand it. Gyokeres should demand it. And we need to make sure that these players like Martinelli are coached to be able to play the pass quicker, to take that action sooner. And I just don't want to be watching Gyokeres make run after run after run after run and never be found. We need to move the ball faster. We need to move the ball up the field quicker. We need more urgency in our game. We need to coax the opposition into an attack, get the turnover of the ball, and play the passes up the field quicker. Our breaks need to be more threatening. It's really difficult to watch the amount of quality that is in this team and at times see that there's ideas there and there's opportunities there and they're not taken. That is what for me is really very, very, very frustrating about the way in which we attack, is that it's so easy to defend against sometimes. And I want more variety, but Martinelli, it's a big, big question mark over his head this season. Obviously, everything kind of changed a lot in the second half. I know that we conceded another goal on the counter. I'm not really fussed about that because I don't think that situation will happen too often. I'm not concerned too much about the third goal. It's a really good finish by Danjuma. I think Kepa should come for the ball. He's kind of caught in two minds and goes back. Gabriel and Luis Skelly's caught a little bit high up the pitch, and that's not really a surprise for him. But the second half performance was much better. Now, I saw a lot of people complain about the fact that Gyokeres came off before we kind of had our midfield going. I don't have an issue with this at all. If I get this frustration about the performance yesterday, some things that happened, you have to kind of just take a step back and recognise why what happened. Gyokeres had to start the game. Kai Havertz was injured. Hopefully not a big issue. I'm told it's just a few days he should be out for. He could even be in the squad again on Saturday. Gyokeres had to start the game because of the strikers that we had available. And also he had to start the game for himself, for the fitness-wise. And we know that we're going to start a strong team. Probably the team that's going to play against Man United is going to start the game on Saturday. So Rice, Ødegaard, Zubimendi, these guys, they're going to start on Saturday. I would be beyond shocked if the midfield on Saturday is not Zubimendi, Ødegaard, and Rice. So you're going to start those three. Gyokeres can't play 90 minutes in this game, so he has to come off. And so it made sense that we made those changes in the way that we did. It's a preseason game. Substitutions and analysing the changes that we make, it's pointless and silly if you go overboard with that because it's a preseason game. It's all about fitness. And Saturday, that's the game where you're going to look at the best 11. That's the game where you start your best team. That's the team that's going to be Raya, White, or if not Timber when he's fit, those two are still interchangeable. I think it'll be White, Saliba, Gabriel, if he's fit enough to start the game. Miles Lewis-Skelly on the left, Zubimendi, Rice, Ødegaard, Saka, Gyokeres, and then I'd like it to be Trossard, but he's probably not going to be fit yet, but we'll have to wait and see. So if not, I'd like it to be Madueke. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But Zubimendi just, and I thought, Norgard was great and had a really, really, really strong game, but Zubimendi just changes things, doesn't he? Like, he just changes the way in which we approach games. It was so much more direct. We're so much quicker in moving the ball up the field. We're so much more threatening with him in the number 6 role. Like, Norgard's going to be great for games in where he needs to come off the bench and kind of break up play for us, as he did really good. But Zubimendi just takes things to new heights for me in midfield. He's such a class player to watch. He's such a joy to be able to enjoy in the middle of the park. And I cannot wait to see this team really benefit from his presence in that role. I look forward to the game on Saturday, even though I'm going to miss it, annoyingly, but it's my missus' 30th, so I'm busy. I'm not at the game. I'll be enjoying a vineyard of a wine tasting for my missus' birthday, but I will be catching up on it, of course, before the morning show. But I can't wait to be able to watch what the influences are on Saturday, because Zubimendi's a really exciting player. He's a really, 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 really exciting player. So I was really impressed by his performance. And of course, Ødegaard and Dowman as well, when they come off the bench, also really impressive. Really impressive performance from both of them. Odegaard just looks that much better than he did last season already. It's so nice to see the zip back in his game. It's so nice to see that the movement, the confidence seems to be back in Odegaard's game, which was really good. His passing is quicker. His movement is better. His directness is more noticeable. He was so down last season. It was such a lull in Odegaard's form that I did have a concern if we were ever going to see kind of the Odegaard back that we had in 23-24 in particular. And Odegaard looks to be, I don't want to say back 100%, but he looks to be in a much, much, much better place than he was for the majority of last season. This preseason has been good for Odegaard. And that's something I'm excited. That's why I say about like results don't really bother me. I'm kind of looking at the individual performances of the players. And there are concerns that I've got, as we've talked about. But Odegaard's not a concern for me. Zubimendi's not a concern for me. Declan Rice isn't a concern for me. Gyokeres isn't a concern for me. Ben White's not a concern for me. Gabriel and Saliba aren't really concerns for me other than Gabriel's fitness. Lewis Skelly's position on the left-hand side is a question mark, but I still like a lot of what I see. Some of the driving runs that Miles Lewis Skelly made were really, really impressive. So, and Raya, we had the moment against Spurs. He made a really good. He was really unlucky actually with the second goal because he made a really good save from that strike. And unfortunately, I think Lewis Skelly was caught napping a little bit. The Kivior didn't do enough to stop it. And obviously, he's unlucky with the first goal because it comes off the post, hits him in the back, and then he's not at the back post ready, and there's a deflected shot that goes in. So I'm not concerned about Raya. Saka, this was his worst game of pre-season, but other than this game, I thought Saka's been quite good. And then, of course, you've got Max Dowman, who is going to get chances this season. Like, there's no doubt about Max Dowman's quality. There's no doubt about the fact that he's going to get opportunities in this season because when he comes off the bench, he just offers so much. He's always a threat. He's always trying to make something happen. He's always so direct. And the reason why I think Arsenal fans in particular, it's obvious that in isolation, he is a great talent. And there's so much to be excited about in the way that he plays. But take out the individualism of it for a second. As Arsenal fans, we have been crying out for a player like this to be in the team. A player that gets the ball and goes into those dangerous positions immediately. A player that tries to make stuff happen frequently. That's what this team needs. And age is just a number in this regard because if you're old enough, you're good enough. Or rather, if you're good enough, you're old enough. You know the phrase. And I agree with just saying, he says in the chat, Dowman plays fearlessly. That's the word. There is a fearlessness about the way he plays. He doesn't play like he's playing against, people sometimes twice his age. And there are going to be games where obviously the physicality side of things is going to be a concern. That's why I don't expect to see him start in loads of games, to be honest. I think he'll be getting to those positions on the field in later in games and making a difference in matches for us. But there is obviously a physical element that does need to be managed because if it's not, then, you do so at your own peril. Kepa, Julian, Timber and Gabriel all returning as well. That's obviously a really positive thing. Timber, I thought, was really good actually when he came off the bench and we've missed kind of his balanced play at times. Gabriel, a couple of good moments. Bad penalty. I say bad penalty. It's a really good save. And obviously you could say he was caught out somewhat with the third goal, but I didn't expect him to be chasing it back with his hamstring situation. Kepa, probably the worst he's played in pre-season from what we've seen. Kepa, obviously wasn't very good from the goal standpoint, was caught kind of in two minds. Should have really probably closed down Danjuma first and gone for the ball, but instead went back and there was no way that anyone was catching him. So it led to a one-on-one situation. So yeah, probably Kepa's worst performance in an Arsenal shirt. But again, it was just one moment that's kind of clouded the whole performance overall. But yeah, Timber and Gabriel, very, very, very positive to see them both back in the squad and playing. And lastly, the last point to talk about is, of course, Madueke, who, and I tell you what, is it not just refreshing again? I use that word again, to see a left footer on the left-hand side, somebody that gets balls into the box. Like there's a couple of moments he got straight down that left-hand half space, ball immediately into the area, and had, of course, Gyokeres been in the box at that point, I would have been curious to see how he would have handled having that service, having that type of player. Again, it's just there's elements of his game that give me encouragement as opposed to what I see with Martinelli. That's kind of where I'm at with Noni. He had a couple of training sessions and then played for 20 minutes. I think what we saw was really encouraging. And I think that, he's the opportunity to use him on the left. He's definitely been brought in as kind of primarily to be a better cover for Saka if we are ever to lose Saka. But it might be that it ends up being that he starts to own the left flank. Arteta was asked by Harry after the game in the press conference that, what side would he play? And Arteta said both. He will play on both sides. He can play on both sides. And that's where he's going to offer us depth and quality and difference and attack and the ability to take players on, the ability to make things happen. But having a left footer who can put the ball into the box more quickly, more directly, I'm very, 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 very pleased to see that. Right, let's go into the chat box now. Let's go to part 2. Get your questions in. Use your capital Qs. Help them stand out. And I'll go through as many of them I can in the next 20 minutes or so. Let's do all that right after this. Oh, no. During the break, I usually take a swig of water and it's gone down the wrong way. I can feel it now. I'm going to be struggling all the way through this second period now. Hopefully it holds. Okay. We did have a question, a super chat yesterday that I, being the idiot I am, missed. So just to give a quick shout out to Franz for the super chat yesterday that I did miss. He said, if you had to pick a starting 11 using only currently signed players, so no Eze, who, by the way, I'm going to be very honest with you. Based upon my feelings now around the potential Eze deal, I'm not feeling great about it. I'm just going to say that I'm not feeling particularly confident about the Eze situation. If it happens, great, but my percentages around the Eze deal have dropped below 50% now. Is where my head's at. So. I hope Arsenal bring in a 7th signing, a 3rd attacking player. But the longer this window's going on, the less confident I am about Eze right now. So, yeah, I'm just telling you where my head's at. I'm less confident on it than I have been. So, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying where my head is at this point in time. I'm the least confident I have been about the idea of Eze joining Arsenal. So, yeah, the question is, Fran says, if you had to pick a starting 11 using only currently signed players, as in no Eze, what would it look like if you choose one fixed lineup? I think we kind of said it, didn't we? Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis, Skelly, Zubimendi, Rice, Ødegaard, Saka, Gyokeres, Madueke. That would probably be my starting team based upon the players that we've signed. So, yeah. That's where I'm at. Right, let's go into the chat box, shall we? And tackle some of your questions. Jack says it was nice to see not a, in my opinion, a noticeable drop in quality when Mosquera came on and when he shifted into Saliba's position. Yeah, I thought Mosquera had a decent game. I didn't really include him in part 1, but yeah, I guess I didn't include him because he didn't really, pop up my radar for anything negative. But yeah, he looks confident. He looks calm. He looks composed. He looks like an Arsenal defender, and that's definitely a positive thing. JC says, Eze, what do you know? I'm not getting good vibes at the moment about this deal. Arsenal, if they're going to bring in Eze, who is a player that they like, if they're going to bring in Eze, the focus right now is on sales. So your Vieira's, your Nelsons, your Lokongas, your Karl Heinz, players need to move on. That's where the focus is right now. Not only that, but the sense I get is that Ethan Nwaneri's new deal, even though initially, and I hold my hands up here, initially I didn't think it was as related. But I think that Ethan Nwaneri's new contract has made a difference. I also think Nwaneri's performances in pre-season have made a difference. Because even though I feel that Eze can play in a wide area, I feel as though that the pre-season performances of some players has changed things. I think that has changed it. I do think, and to be fair, a lot of the noise on Eze's side has been more about the player then that's worth pointing out. So the player's very keen on a move. I think Palace recognise as well that at 27 years of age, if you're going to sell him, this is the best moment in the player's kind of cycle. You know, as a player at 27 years of age, you're going to get maximum value, 60 odd £million plus to do a deal. We know they want £35 million at least up front. I kind of want to temper your expectations a bit. That's what I'm going to say. I kind of want to temper your expectations around this, because I feel like we've been speaking about the Eze deal almost like it's going to happen. And I've gone through kind of peaks and troughs of confidence about the Eze situation, but I'm less confident than I've ever been right now. And, you know, there's a lot of clarity that's kind of there for me. So I think that there's the chance, of course, but I think it would need things to happen. I think things would need to happen in the market for that to happen. Now, that's not to say that Arsenal won't sign anybody. You know, it's not a case of Eze or bust. I'm not saying that. It could be that Arsenal do end up signing a seventh player. Certainly what is true is that the Eze stuff was separate from Madueke. We do know that. And we know that they wanted a third attacking signing, and that's why it was separate to the rest of it. But I'm just not as confident. Just from, you know, as you go through a summer, you have more information, but I'm less confident about it. So I just kind of want to temper your expectations. And I do think that performances... You also have to factor in the Dowman thing. The Dowman thing is really interesting to me, because if you're Max Dowman, who is predominantly a central attacking player, he's playing on the right now, and we often see that with young players. They start wide and then they move more to the middle as they mature. You've given Nwaneri a new deal. Saka's going to get a new deal. Odegaard's signed a new contract recently. He's going to be here for the foreseeable future. You sign Eze, who is predominantly an attacking midfielder in the middle area, but can play in wide positions. And if you are, and the thing about young players is that they're quite vulnerable to leaving clubs at that point of their career, because contracts are the way they are. They have to sign professional contracts at 17. They now have to sign their first senior deal. But until they sign that first senior deal, like Lewis Skelly has at 18, they're only like 2-3 year professional contracts. So they're quite vulnerable and susceptible to leaving, as we have seen with Aiden Heaven and, of course, with Chido. I guess you have to ask the question in the chat box, would you have rather have Arsenal renewed Ethan Nwaneri's deal or signed Eze? I guess that's the question you have to kind of ask yourselves. And people would point it to the player and say, he's 15. And I'd say, yeah, he is 15. He's very young. But the way in which football is developing at the moment, we're seeing players move into the senior space of football at a younger age, a much, much younger age. If you ask me, would I have rather renewed Nwaneri's contract or signed Eze? You're saying, basically what I'm saying there is, if we'd have signed Eze, it means that Nwaneri would have gone to Dortmund or Chelsea like that. I really struggle with the idea of this question. I really struggle with the concept around this question, because I think Nwaneri is brilliantly talented. I think Nwaneri has a lot to give. And I think that will come more so in his early 20s. But if you sign Eze, there's no doubt in my mind that Nwaneri's minutes and opportunities thin a lot. And maybe that development doesn't happen in the same way. But I've only seen at the senior level with Nwaneri kind of fits and spurts of that talent and potential that I think will become more consistent as he ages, and we won't see that until his 20s. But I don't think we'll see it. I think there's a really slim chance of seeing it if we were to sign Eze. Problem is that I think Eze is a world-class player. And I think Eze could be absolutely transformative for Arsenal if they signed him. And I think that if we don't sign Eze and he was to go somewhere else, like, you know, I could see him going to Spurs because they're not going to get Morgan Gibbs-White. So they're going to pivot to somebody else. I could really see him going to Spurs. That's really genuinely something I could see happening this window, which would be absolutely horrible to see. But are we really that kind of obsessed about transfers that we would sacrifice one of our best young players' potential talent to go and sign them? I don't know. Well, that's a you question, isn't it? But I don't think it's going to happen. Hybrid Squad Soph says, Arteta snubbing Gyokeres when Zubi, Rice and Odegaard came on was insane. Why wouldn't you want to see him in an actual game? Well, we will, Soph. I think we'll see it on Saturday. That's when we'll see that. It was to do with fitness. That was the only reason it happened. It's because they're going to start on Saturday. That's my feeling. Temi said with the super chat, thank you so much, mate. What are your thoughts on Arteta deploying players in unnatural positions? I feel like it's an overcomplication of football and could be a problem. Who specifically? Like Raya played in position, obviously. Ben White did, Saliba did, Kivior did, Lewis Skelly did. Because he's a left back at the moment, Lewis Skelly. Like, we can always say that he can play in midfield, but he is a left back for us right now. Norgard did, Marino did, Guarneri did, Saka did, Gyokeres did, Martinelli did. And then when we changed off the bench, Dama moved into a wide area because he's a younger player and he's kind of being protected by playing out there. And then will be moved, I think, more so into the middle as he matures and grows up. Zubi came on at 6. Marino moved up top because we don't have Havertz at the moment. Rice was at left 8. Madueke on the left-hand side. So I'm not sure what you mean, Temi. He played everyone in their positions, did he not? Other than Marino when he moved. Mark says, why not loan Ethan once he signs a new contract? Well, yeah, that is an option, isn't it? Is that you loan Ethan out. But again, he's still going to be here. You've still signed Eze to a 5-year contract, don't you? And then Eze comes back after a year of a loan, and then what? So, yeah, it's kind of it's confliction. It's a confliction there. Ian says, why sign Madueke? Dalman and Ethan are both good options for Saka, but they're because the problem with that argument, Ian, is that both Ethan and Dalman. Ethan is not a right winger. For starters, he's a central player. That is his best role. That is where he's more impactful in the game. He's too isolated in the wide area. He's not like Dalman for me. Dalman is a better wide player from what the little I've seen of him than for me what Ethan Guarneri is. I think Guarneri is much better centrally. And Dalman ultimately is going to grow into a more of a central role. And you can't have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old being the backup option to Saka. So we needed to make sure that we got in somebody who was more senior, more experienced in their 20s that had that ability to play in Saka's position, if not there. So that's why we signed Madueke. That's why we signed him, because he's a winger. We needed to bring in that winger who could operate on both sides, and he's going to do that for us. It's just Eze for me is like a market opportunity that's there, and I'd love it to happen. I'd love him to sign for Arsenal. I think we need a player like that in the team of that ilk, but I can keep saying it over and over again. I'm just less confident now than I have been about that deal happening. Greenweather says, Tom, do you think Arteta is mixing up his preferred first team players as to confuse other clubs? Without question, yeah. Like he's trying not to show too much of his hand, I think, in pre-season. I think we will see on Saturday probably the team that we will see on Sunday against Man United. I think that's what we'll end up seeing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that one. AFC says he played well on the right last season. Madueke isn't a left winger. Well, they disagree with you. The Arteta disagrees with you. Arteta thinks he can play on both sides. So that's all I've got for that. Claire says, not a question, just a thank you for super chat. Thank you, Claire. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Joe says that he's gifted a membership. So good luck to whoever's got that membership. Welcome to the fam. Thank you, Joel. Very much appreciate that. Ragamuffin says, Guarneri needs to want the ball more, like Odegaard does. He disappeared too much yesterday. Space Monkey says, hi, Tom. Players like Miles Lewis, Skelly, White, and Martinelli miss Gyokeres' runs. Should he call for it? Yeah, I think, and I think he will call for it more. I think he will absolutely call for it more. I think he will. The more confident he gets, the more involved he gets with the team. We will see that demand. We'll see that ask. You know, that's what we will see. And why boo? I don't know why Arsenal fans boo Pepe. Weird behaviour. Mark says, Eze is 27. When Eze turns 29, Ethan's only 20. Maybe we need to adopt the William Saliba pathway with him. This is, as I said, there is an option. That is an option. I just can't see it happening. Because at the moment, we haven't sold anyone. So we don't really have the freedom to invest yet. We don't have the freedom to invest through the UEFA financial fair play restrictions. And until we do sell, we're not going to sign anyone else. because we've spent nearly 200 million and brought in 6. That's not sustainable. We can't do that. So we have to move some players on. And there are talks ongoing. And once Vieira is sold, once Reece Nelson goes, once maybe hopefully Lokonga goes, then it'll be interesting. If Trossard goes, that's obviously a very, very big thing. If Leo goes, that's a really, really, really important moment. So you cannot go into the season without having made a third attacking signing if Leo goes, period. Can't do it. Cannot happen. So if Leo leaves and Arsenal don't bring in that third attacker, that would change my view of the transfer window. I'm at an 8 right now. 6 signings. Gyokeres, Zubi, Madueke, Norgard, Kepa, Mosquera. I'm at an 8 out of 10. I'm not going to be greedy. I think to be lower than an 8, I just think for me is a bit greedy, considering how much we've spent, how quickly we did it. Incomings-wise, I'm at an 8. Eze took it to a 9 for me. But if we were to sell Leo and not bring in someone, it would drop to a 7. No, there's very little kind of movement in my mind about that. But I will say that I think that the pre-season performances of Waneri and Dowman, I think has changed things. I think. I don't know. I'm theorizing. I think it has changed things. What I do know is that I'm less confident about Eze than I have been. So that's, and there is a mental kind of psychology to transfers. Transfers make people say weird and strange things. Because if you speak to people about Arsenal's window from an outside perspective, the view is that Arsenal have had a very good window. And that Arsenal have made signings to change who they are, what they are, how competitive they are. Arsenal have 2 players of a starting level. We have concerns about some of them, Martinelli, for example, but Arsenal have 2 players in every single position. Raya and Kepa, White and Timber, Saliba Mosquera, Gabriel Kivior, Luis Skelly Calafiori, Zubimendi Norgard, Rice Marino, Odegaard Waneri, Saka Madueke, Martinelli Trossard, Gyokeres Havertz. We have 2 players in every single position. That 22 does not include a potentially returning Jesus halfway through the season. It does not include Max Dowman. It does not include some of the other young players that are on that team. It doesn't include Zinchenko if he stays. We have 2 players in every single position, which is what you have to aim for as when you are building a squad. So I'm in this really strange area right now because what I need the season to start. Samuel says, Tom, why you got to upset us on a Thursday morning? Look, I'm in a really weird position right now because I'm watching preseason through the lens of that it's preseason. I'm watching the signings that we've made impress me, which encourages me. I'm watching our existing players in some cases struggle and concern me. But I'm doing it all with this lens of it's pre-season. We've not seen our best team play together from the start yet. We're not going to show our hand until maybe Saturday before Man United. And it's mainly about fitness pre-season and building up that familiarity. And we've made 6 signings. So that's even more important because we don't have time for gelling in the season. Gelling is going to happen. It has to happen, but it's not an excuse because we had to make these signings. So, yeah, and the last thing I'm worried about is Arteta. Arteta's the last thing I'm worried about in this group. Not in terms of it being he's the last thing I'm worried about. He's fine. No, he is a worry for me, but it's my last worry because system-wise, I've got concerns. I've got concerns about our system. I've got concerns about our speed. I've got concerns about our proactivity to get the ball up the field quick enough. But I'm not judging right now. This is not the time for me to sit here and be uber critical, uber analytical about how we're playing because that would be silly and naive to do that in pre-season. So I'm not going to do that. I will do that after the first 5 games. And if we've had a really worrying start to the season, then we'll have a really difficult conversation because that has to change and quickly. because we can't afford to drop many points. Yes, it's a tough start, but for me, that's an opportunity to pick up some really big points, not an opportunity to sit there and say, well, we had a tough start this season. We probably were going to drop points here. No, if you're going to win the league, you got to win these games. If you're going to win the league, you got to win at Old Trafford. You can't lose at Liverpool. You got to beat City. If Arsenal come through the first 5 games with more than 12 points, I'll be really happy. Really, really happy if we've got more than 12 points, because that would basically mean 4 wins and a draw minimum. But if we've lost a couple of games, 1-2, drawn 1, I think that's nearly impossible to come back from in terms of the title race, to be honest. So, because just of how good I expect Liverpool and City to be. So that's where we're at right now. And that's why I've got concerns. But I'm not sitting here and saying we're not going to win anything, we're bad, blah, blah, blah. But you get some people going overboard, and they always do. But I have concerns, but I have patience too. And I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to wait and see what we do. I'm willing to wait and see what is going to be on offer in these first couple of games. That's kind of where my head's at. Kirill says, hi, thank you, Tom, for being you. Thank you for doing so much for mental health and taking it so seriously. Will you have a guest on your show again soon? Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely be having guests on the show soon. I've got a really busy week. If you're a listener of the Arscast, I'm going to be on with Andrew a little bit later on today as well. So the next Arscast episode will be my voice that you'll hear. So I look forward to that as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm genuinely looking forward to the season. I'm just being patient for it to start. I'm not talking about having patience for another year. I'm saying I'm just being patient to see what we do in the games. Like, I know people it's a buzzword for people. They hear the word patience and they suddenly lose their minds. I'm saying just be patient and wait for the season to start. Let's see what we do. Don't look at these preseason games and go, oh, the world's ending. Oh, we're terrible. Oh, we're this. Oh, we're that. Because it's almost impossible to take away anything too serious from these preseason games. So that's where I'm at. I'm really excited for the season. We finally signed a striker. We've finally got 2 players in every position. We're not even finished yet in the window, fingers crossed. I'm excited for this season. I can't wait for it to start. I can't wait to have something to talk about beyond just the summer. The summer's been a really long summer. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Spitro says, I'm patient. I was patient when we signed Sterling. I was patient in January. No signs this window. I thought we'd get a Rodrigo or something bigger for our patience. We've literally signed Europe's highest scoring goal scorer. Like we've signed the best number 6 on the market. We've gone and spent nearly 200 million. I'm sorry, but you're being greedy. I'm going to be very blunt with you. You're just not being very reasonable about the window. To think Arsenal haven't had a good summer so far is crazy. Crazy. And that point of view is backed up by what we've done. It's backed up by, as I've just said there, signing the best 6, signing the highest goal scorer in Europe, signing depth for positions we desperately needed to add depth to solve the issues of injuries that we've had last season. If you're not pleased with what we have done so far, I don't think you ever will be. I don't think you ever will be realistically pleased with the window, because I think your expectations go beyond what is realistic. And what worries me is I think if you were the people that aren't pleased with Arsenal's window would be pleased with Liverpool's. And they haven't signed Isak yet, by the way. Nor might they not sign him, especially with Newcastle not getting Sesko. But I think Liverpool, if you were a Liverpool, I think the people that aren't pleased with Arsenal's window so far, if they were Liverpool fans, having seen Frimpong, Gyokeres, Wirtz and Ekitike come in, I think they'd be pleased with that. And you know what the ironic thing is that the same people that would be pleased with Liverpool's window, despite the fact they've not signed 2 key positions that they desperately had to go and sign this summer, being defensive midfield and centre-back, are the same people that are saying, we've not got that third attacker at Arsenal. And that's the problem with how Arsenal and their windows and how we assess summers, is there is a hypocrisy, between that. So take a step back, as I always say, breathe, look at the bigger picture. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens in this window and this season. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. I can't wait for it to start. I can't wait for us to actually have some real competitive football to talk about. So, yeah, let's wait and see. But thank you so much for listening. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, to discuss anything that happens in the next 24 hours. Hopefully there is some movement transfers-wise, because we could really do with some outgoings to enable us to do some late business in the window. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.